Hi, I'm Carly, and I'm here to talk to you today about retiring in Spain. So, if you're here, you're probably already thinking about the non-lucrative visa and living your dream of moving to Spain and having your retirement there. So, I get hundreds of comments and questions and messages every single day with the main concerns that people have about retiring to Spain on the non-lucrative visa. So, I'm going to help you with those today. These are the main concerns that I hear. People are worried about being rejected, getting it wrong, the forms being in Spanish, timing everything correctly, because there's lots of things that you need to do along the way, and documents can expire, for example, and it costs a lot of money to get them redone. What counts as income? So, pension, savings, a combination of both. What each consulate requires. So, if you're applying from the UK, you have Manchester, Edinburgh, and also London, and they do change. So, that needs to be kept on top of as well. With all the documents that you need to submit at your appointment, what needs to be translated, what needs to be apostilled, and how much is all that going to cost? Understanding tax, this is probably one of the number one questions that I get because it's such a massive subject and it's a worry. If you're coming from the UK, for example, you understand the tax regime. Well, what is that actually going to look like for you in a brand new country? What happens after you arrive? So actually, there are things to do when you get to Spain. Unfortunately, you haven't just got your visa and off you go. There's tons of stuff, tons of other paperwork that you need to do when you get there. And that is a concern that it's a bit of a mystery and people don't know about it. And then finally, if you're going through this process, there's lots of ins and outs. Really, this is all about, getting to Spain and which visa you're going to get, how much you need to prove, what documents you need, all that kind of stuff. You've got lots of other stuff to think about. You might need to sell a house. You might need to find a property in Spain. You've got to think about things like bringing your stuff. Maybe you've got a pet. If you're bringing kids, then, what does that look like for them? And you're going to have loads and loads of questions along the way. I certainly did. And if you use a solicitor, it can cost you thousands. Every time you have a question, you're paying another bill. So these are all the concerns that people have said to me, and I try and help them with every single day. So I'm going to come back to that in a second. But first of all, let's look at the different stages of going from where you are now to actually living your dream in Spain. So there's four separate stages, if you like. So you've got before you apply, which is probably the biggest part. So gathering all your documentation, understanding what it looks like, speaking to tax consultants, etc., and making sure that everything's ready to go. Then you've got your consulate appointment, which is probably the smallest bit because it's an appointment. You've done all the preparation already, and off you go. Then you've got to wait. So you give them your passport, and you don't get that back until your visa's approved, or in some cases rejected. And then you get to Spain and you've got some more work to do. And then before you know it, it's going to be renewal time because you initially apply for non-lucrative visa for 12 months. So these are the four separate stages. My belief and what we see on a day-to-day basis is that you can absolutely do this from where you are today to having that glass of wine on your balcony within 4 to 6 months. So what does that actually look like? What do these four stages look like? So before you apply, you've got to work out, how do you do it? So what I say to most people when I'm speaking to them is that you need to decide when are you going to move, and then from there you can work backwards. But until you put your flag in the sand and say we're going to be moving by this date, then you're a bit stuck as to what else you can do. And I get that there's loads of other moving parts that it depends on. I completely understand that. I've been there. But until you can do that, you can't really move forward. That is exactly what we did. On one cold day in February 2023, we decided we are doing it by the end of this year. We stuck to it and we got here just before Christmas that year. So you need to look at your financial eligibility next. What documents do you need? What's that going to look like? Have you got enough savings or pension or whatever that looks like, passive income, to be able to meet the financial criteria, which at the moment for 2025 is €28,800 for an individual applicant And if you have a spouse, so you need to be married in this particular instance, then you need to prove an extra €7,200 per year. And that can be either passive income or savings, or it could be a combination. So a total for a couple will be €36,000. The next thing, and actually I would say to most people to do this first, is get your private health insurance. Get your quote first at least. And what that means is that you can understand how much that's going to cost you, because that is actually one of the biggest costs of getting your visa, because you have to have private health insurance. Even if you can potentially get an S1 later because you're of pensionable age, you still need your private health insurance first. You need to apply for your police certificate, your ACRO. That can take time, but it also expires within 6 months, so there's a bit of a timing issue there. Next, you need to translate and apostle all of these documents, so things like your marriage certificate potentially, all of your financial documents, your police certificate, and other stuff as well. And you need to, that all takes time, and you need to work out what needs translating, what needs legalizing, and all that kind of stuff. Then you need to complete the visa forms, which are in Spanish. And obviously that can be a little bit challenging if you don't speak Spanish. Not impossible by any means, but you've got to work all that out as well. Finally, you can book your consulate appointment. And that can be, it can take longer at some consulates than others. And you just have to wait for that to come back, and then you're ready to go. Okay, so that's before you apply. Next up, you've got your consulate appointment. So you're going to take all that paperwork that you've prepared, your passport copies, everything. You're going to pay your visa fee, and you're going to submit everything. You've got like a mini interview whilst you're there, and then that's it. Then you wait. That's why I say that's the short bit, because you've done all the hard work already. Next up, you're in Spain. You've had your visa approved. Woohoo! But it doesn't top that. So you now need to book a fingerprint appointment, which can be tricky because you have to do it online, and there's not a lot of availability. I was constantly on my phone trying to book appointments for the four of us when we had moved over, and it is a bit of a challenge. It's not impossible. In some areas, it's more difficult than others. You also need to register your address, so the padron, if you haven't done this already, if you haven't already got property in Spain. And what that means is going to your local town hall, making an appointment with them, taking a few documents with you, and getting this piece of paper, which is really useful for things like public health insurance and other stuff like that. There's then, unfortunately, some more forms to complete, another small tax to pay, have your fingerprints taken then, and eventually once you've done all that, you've gone to your appointment, you've had your fingerprints taken, you've paid a bit more money and all that kind of stuff, you can then go back and collect your residency card, and then you can relax a bit. You're going to have other projects to do, but in terms of your visa, your residency, that is it, you are done. But as I said, before you know it, it's going to be renewal time. So you're going to have organised all your tax stuff already, because obviously that's really important. Once you've been in Spain for more than 183 days in a tax year, which is also the same as a calendar year, then you become a tax resident in Spain. So you need to be tracking that. In order to be on the NLV or to renew the NLV, you have to have spent 183 days in Spain that year. Otherwise, they're going to say, no, we're not going to renew this. The whole point of the non-lucrative visa is that you live in Spain. They want you to pay taxes. They want you to be here. You're going to need to look at renewing your health insurance for 2 years. And I say 2 years because your next renewal will be for 2 years. So you'll need to have health insurance for another 2 years if you haven't qualified for the S1 yet, i.e. you're not drawing your state pension. But also you're going to need you need to prove the income that you proved for the first year. You need to double that because you're going to be renewing for 2 years. And you're going to do all that 60 days before expiry, so you can make sure that everything runs smoothly. So what do people get wrong? What do they misunderstand? And what are the main pitfalls that they come across? Well, a lot of people misjudge the timing, and that's completely understandable. And this is why I say, put your flag in the sand first, decide when you're going to move, and then you can build a plan and work backwards. And this is what I do with people every single day. To make sure that you get all the timings right for all of your documents, because there's nothing worse than coming to your consulate appointment and you find that one of your documents has expired and you've got to start all over again. Extra cost, time, money, everything like that. Getting your forms or documents wrong, they're in Spanish, right? So, of course, it's going to be a bit more challenging. than filling out a form, from your home country. So there's that to overcome as well, and making sure that you get every detail right so that when you come to do it, there's no issues. Assuming the appointment is the end, unfortunately, it's not. You go to the consulate, you give me your passport, you've got to wait, and then you've got to get to Spain, and there's more work to do. Not proving the right kind of income. So there is a lot of misconceptions about income. Some people think that you need to have hundreds of thousands in the bank because you need it for the 5 years. That's not true. Others think that you can't, a state pension isn't enough. Well, it isn't actually, but if you've got an additional income, additional pension, or you've got savings to supplement it, then it can be absolutely viable. And other people thinking they can just wing it. So they move to Spain, turn up and go, oh yeah, it'll be fine, I'll just get my residency. It doesn't work like that. So let's just have a look at the cost for a minute, very briefly, because some people think, oh, well, there's only a visa fee, whatever that is. Well, yes, that's absolutely right. That's a few £100s, but there's all the additional costs that you need to think about as well. So your police check, the translations, any apostles that you need, your health insurance, which, as I say, is one of the biggest ones. That is a very rough estimate. It's going to very much depend on you, your age, and whether you've got any pre-existing conditions. And then there's a few other admin bits like passport photos, travel into the consulate, your TA card, so your residency card when you get here, and other little bits of tax and things like that. So that all adds up. And it can be even more than that, by the way. And then when you get to the end, if you decide you want to use a solicitor, which, by the way, is completely up to you don't have to use a solicitor, then that could cost you thousands more. Minimum for one person is going to be at least £1,500. And then you've got to, if you have a partner or kids or whatever, then it's going to cost you even more than that. So I had a question on a session just yesterday, actually, which was, why do we need a solicitor? Well, the truth is you don't. You can do this entire process by yourself. You don't have to use a solicitor. So some people are very happy doing it by themselves. Other people would rather use a solicitor, and that is absolutely fine. I totally get that. We use a solicitor for our digital nomad visa, but the NLV is much more simple. And lots of people do it by themselves every single day. So let's just step back a second into the things that you told me you were worried about. So what I've tried to do, because I have a lot of contact with people who are asking these questions all the time, I really wanted to answer these questions and try to solve these problems and come up with some solutions for you. So I've come up with a few solutions which I sell every single day. And I help people to do this, to move to Spain, to retire on a non-lucrative visa. So the first one that I have is really, really basic. It's a full guide. It's got a step-by-step process to retire to Spain. It's got all the links in there for booking your appointments. It's got how to fill out all of the individual forms, everything that you could possibly need to do it yourself, from where you are sitting right now watching this to actually sitting in Spain, sitting on the balcony, enjoying the sunshine and enjoying your retirement there. So that guide means you're going to do it by yourself, but everything is written down for you. If you follow it, you're good to go. The other thing that I do with many, many people are one-to-one calls. I do these every single week and speak to people who just want a little bit of extra help and guidance with their situation. And what I do with those people is I build out a plan for them and a timeline which is specific and bespoke to them. And I send all that over to them in a report along with any questions that they've had, links, referrals to experts, anything that could possibly need. So all this research that I've spent the last 2 years collating and working on, longer in fact, I've pulled it all together. I've got the best people to work with. I work with 3 different solicitors. I work with tax advisors. I work with translation companies, insurance brokers, and there are some that we don't use because they're not great, and there are some that we absolutely do use, and they're the ones that I recommend to you. So you don't have to do all that work. I also have a WhatsApp support service, and on this, basically, I've got a few people at the moment. Some are moving on a non-lucrative visa, others are moving with an EU passport, and I work through any questions that they have at any point, and that's rolling on a monthly basis. And whenever they have a question, they can just send me a WhatsApp, a voice note, or a written text, And I go back to them and say, yep, this is what you need. This is who you need to speak to. This is the link that you need, or, whatever. And that works really, really well for people who just want a bit of extra help. So they're the 3 different things that I offer. But I thought people keep asking me for different things. And I thought, well, why don't I just pull all of this together and create a solution where I can offer all of this in one package? So that's exactly what I've done. And I wanted to make sure that it answered all of those questions and fears that people have been telling me about. So, for example, people are scared of getting it wrong and being rejected. Well, what I've included is one-to-one support to make sure that you're on the right track at every stage. I'll review your documents before you submit them. I'll give you a full step-by-step timeline of what to do, how to do it, when to do it. And I'll give you guidance based on actual approved applications. Spanish forms, coming back to this again, they're so confusing. They are. Well, I speak fluent Spanish. I've been learning Spanish since I was at school. I studied at a university. I live here now. And I understand what they're saying. I can interpret them. So I'm able to give you clear explanations. And also, I've worked through this myself, remember? I can give you clear explanations of each form. I can help you to support them, or I can complete them for you, and you get WhatsApp access at any time to ask me those questions. Timing. Well, we've talked about the personalised plan, and I'm going to remind you along the way about all the things that you need to do and when, and make sure that they all slot in together. So you don't know what counts as income. Is early retirement okay? Yes, absolutely. But let's have a real look at that income and make sure that it is totally viable before you get to your consulate appointment. Speaking of which, they all say different things, they all change. I keep in contact with them all, and you'll get specific guidance for you and the consulate that you're using. What needs to be translated in apostilled? Well, again, I'll tell you all this, and so that you're not spending unnecessary money on things that you don't need to spend money on, because it costs enough to move to Spain, right? So you don't want to be spending money on things that you don't actually need to be translated or apostilled. So I will break that all down for you, and I'll give you my recommended translators that I have personally used and can recommend. Tax, this is a big one. I'm not a tax advisor, I don't pretend to be, but I can give you some very low-level guidance on how tax works and the things that you should do before you move to Spain to avoid paying unnecessary tax in Spain. And of course, I've got a network of trusted tax advisors that I can refer you to. And I really always recommend that you have those conversations and know exactly what you're doing before you move to Spain. What happens after you arrive? So now you need to make appointments, you need to go to the appointment, you need to pick up a card. Oh, it's all a bit stressful. So I'll help you with that as well. And you'll have WhatsApp access. And if you're in the Barcelona area, we can meet up. I do that regularly with people who are coming to an area near where I live. I'm really happy to meet you and do that as well. And then there's the cost. So solicitors, look, I refer people to solicitors all the time because they have their place. They're very, very important. They can give you specific immigration legal advice, which I cannot. But ultimately, they cost a lot of money, and you don't necessarily need that depending on your case. So you get direct WhatsApp access to me. You can ask questions whenever you want. I do not charge solicitor fees, and it's human interaction, step-by-step support. I've done it, I understand the pain, and I speak Spanish too. So I feel like I've ticked all of those concerns off along the way with this product. So how much is it going to cost? So I've got 2 different levels. I've got a done with you package where I help you, I hold your hand, I help you through the process. And I've got a done for you package where I do a lot more for you if you don't feel confident or if you just want to hand it over. So the done with you package is $599 for the main applicant, and the done for you is $749. So what's included? Basically all the things that I said. So for the done with you, you get, first of all, you get a call. That's normally £99. You get that included. You get WhatsApp support. You get your personalised timeline, help completing your forms, support with your police report, guidance on what to translate in apostle. You get appointment booking support, reminders, the referrals that I talked about to the trusted people in my network. You get a checklist to make sure that you've done everything that you should have done, and then I'll help you when you get here as well. If you're eligible for the S1 certificate, I'll give you guidance too, and also on your health insurance. So that's us doing it together, right? But if you want me to do a bit more for you, you get privacy WhatsApp service, you get the forms completed for you, you get translations arranged for you, I source you insurance quotes, I'll help you with your S1. I'll check everything before you submit it to the consulate, and you get additional WhatsApp support and potentially a meeting in Barcelona as well, if that's where you're going. Now, what about additional people? Because I said that was for the main applicant. So that's fine. We can add those on as well. There are some additional costs because obviously there's extra processing. But let's say you've got a spouse or a partner, that would be another 299. And for children under 14, it'd be 149. So these are the overall prices that you're looking at. So the done with you cost, the done for you cost, and the additional people. So right now, I'm looking for 3 people to work with. And that is in the next few months. If you're looking to move in the next 4 to 6 months, the reason I say this, I'm only looking for 3 people, is because I want to give them my full undivided attention. I want to make sure that you get what you're paying for, essentially. So if you're thinking, I want to be there in the next 4 to 6 months, I'm ready to go, or there or thereabouts, then you need to get in contact because the places are filling up. I had a live call last night, live Q&A. I have already placed one of those people. I'm saying I've still got 3 available. I can potentially stretch that, but as I say, I want to give people my undivided attention and make sure that you get what you need. So if this is something you're interested in, you need to act. So what do you need to do? The next thing you need to do is book a call. So the call that I talked about that was £99 where you get your plan. Well, if you're interested in this NLV approved, then you can book a call for 40% off. If you scan that QR code with your phone, it'll bring up the link where you can make that booking. Make sure you put that discount code in to get you 40% off, or it'll just charge you the normal price. And also, if you decide to go ahead with NLV approved, I will redeem the amount that you've already paid against the total amount. But you'll still get a plan and a call, and you get to ask one-to-one questions no matter what happens. So if you're interested in this, scan the QR code, get in touch with me. Feel free to drop me a message on email or on social media. And I really look forward to helping you moving to Spain and getting you to the place where you can be living out your dream.